Question: what if stories and poetry weren't just art, but living currents that quietly reshape the collective consciousness? Marinate on that for a second, because that is a central question to what I'm talking about here in this video. So I used to downplay the poetry and stories I wrote because I thought the more factual and professional writing was more important. But I was so wrong, and I'll elaborate more on how wrong I really was and the potential we're working with here. So if you write stories, poetry, songs, screenplays, anything like that, and you write them in a way that they're more than just words, they're more than just entertainment, they're spiritual transmissions, then this is for you. So you write to activate people's consciousness through stories, poems, whatever form, and you use it as a mirror for people for self-awakening. You spark people's souls, you speak to their hearts. That's who I'm talking to in this video, okay? So if that's you, you're gonna love this. And in the next few minutes, I'll show you the deeper dynamics at play here and a new movement that is emerging around this. So I tried really hard for years to create valuable content, but what did people always ask me about? So no matter what I did, people would always ask me about one specific project that I'll reveal on the next slide. I would try really hard to share spiritual concepts, personal development stuff, help people that way. I would try really hard to grow my copywriting career and business and things like that. But I always felt like I was hitting a wall. And people would message me. People, when I would meet them in person, they would always bring this up. And what was it? It was this novel I wrote called Soswick about an extraterrestrial Sasquatch shaman who comes to Earth and finds himself in the middle of a secret spiritual war. The premise is pretty out there, but it's so activating and it interweaves so many themes and truths. So there came a point where enough people asked me about this, enough people talked to me about it, that I'm like, there's something to this. Maybe I need to stop trying so hard with the factual content and things like that and really look into and leverage more of the power of stories and poetry and the more artistic, mythopoetic aspect of writing. And that's what brought me down this rabbit hole. And here's another question for you to contemplate. Why do stories and poetry hit so deep? Why? And we'll get into a little bit of that too. It's what I call mythopoetic energetics. So this is why, and a big part of the reason why poetry and stories hit so deep. Mythopoetic energetics, and that just sounds really good to say. So it's using stories and poetry to expand and elevate consciousness. It's mythopoetic creations as spiritual transmissions and sacred mirrors for self-realization. Like I said, you probably write things, create things that do this as well. And that's who I'm speaking to. They're spiritual transmissions. They're mirrors to spark self-realization. They spark people's souls. Mythopoeia, and that's, the other word for mythopoetics, some analogies and metaphors to help you see it in different ways. I love frames, analogies, metaphors. That's why I love the power of storytelling and poetry. Mythopoeia is spiritual cartography to help people navigate reality. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is it's a mirror to help you see reality and yourself from new perspectives. So just like how you can't see like the back of your head unless you have mirrors or multiple mirrors, this is what stories and poetry help us do. They provide us with mirrors and lenses for seeing reality in new ways and from different angles. So there's a reason why religions and wisdom traditions are all based on stories and poetry. Think about that. There's a reason why mythology is central to humanity and culture. There's a reason why people will devour a 500-page novel or a 2-hour movie, but they'll struggle to read a paragraph of something that's just like boring facts, right? Why? There's a deeper reason going on for this, and it's way beyond just entertainment or distraction. There's a reason why song lyrics make us cry, and we remember them for our whole life. Even 50 years later, people will remember song lyrics, or even remember exactly where they were when they first heard a song, okay? There is a deep reason for all of this. Everything is a story. Think about it. Beliefs are stories. Your identity is a story or a compilation of stories. History is all stories combined together. Society is an intertwinement of stories. Everything is a story. And Mythopoeia is humanity's best way. Stories, poetry, is humanity's best way of encoding and decoding wisdom. This is why religions, mythology, wisdom traditions, they use stories and poetry. They use mythopoetics to do this because it's the most effective way we as humans can encode and decode wisdom. And here's another one. I thought this was funny when I came up with it. Only using factual writing is like trying to describe the experience of working at a company by only looking at its tax returns. That one made me laugh. Here's another one. What's a better way to convey the essence of basketball? Reading the rule book of basketball, or a poem describing a game-winning shot, or even the story of how a team came together and won the championship? Obviously, the poem and the stories are better ways of conveying the essence of basketball. It's not that the rule book is completely irrelevant, or there should be no rule book. It's just that it doesn't convey the essence of it in the way that mythopoetics can. Another one, how can you use words to describe the experience of something like pure awareness or satori, which is like a glimpse of enlightenment, or things that cannot be explained by society's belief programs? How do you do it? You use poetry, you use metaphors, you use analogy-driven stories to kind of help people glimpse and even help yourself glimpse these higher truths. And people have always known this intuitively, but we're going deeper here. We're using it consciously, and there's a movement of people intentionally using writing as spiritual transmissions, being intentional and conscious with using mythopoetic energetics to activate consciousness, using mythopoetic energetics to expand or elevate consciousness, whichever term you prefer, expand or elevate. And they're joining this Soulful Writing Collective, and this is my community that I'm putting together. And here's my little plug for it, because it's based around this movement. So this is a living network of mythopoetic conscious creators to help each other spread their message, to help you open up new opportunities, to get unique perspectives on your work. And we decode your work and other people's work that we find meaningful in deep and meaningful ways. So this Soulful Writing Collective is around this theme of mythopoetic energetics and consciously, intentionally using these forms of language to activate consciousness, expand consciousness, point people back to themselves. So if you feel like this is what you're called to do, if you feel like this is part of your purpose, why you're here, and you have that inclination to do this in your soul, that knowing, then join the Soulful Writing Collective. I'm not going to give you some kind of crazy sales pitch with like bonuses and time urgency. I don't have that, but I can speak to that calling in your soul. If you create this way, if you intentionally use mythopoetic stuff to activate people on a spiritual level, if you channel spiritual transmissions, and if you have that strong sense of purpose, that this is a part of that purpose, then I invite you to join, and we'll be happy to have you here. And let's create some magic together. This is a movement. And again, I'd be honored, happy for you to join in on this movement, this living network of conscious creators. So I'll link to it wherever I can, and I hope you found a lot of value and some new perspectives in this video. Much, much love and gratitude.